Welcome to Concrete Block, the podcast where we dive into the latest news and current events from around the world. I'm your host, Walter, and I'm glad you're joining us today. We're starting off with a complex and multifaceted story that's been unfolding in the Middle East. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been a long-standing issue, with both sides having competing claims and narratives. Recently, there have been significant developments that are worth exploring. The United States Agency for International Development has announced that it will be ending its operations in the West Bank and Gaza, citing a lack of progress in the peace process. This move has sparked concerns about the impact on humanitarian efforts in the region. Meanwhile, Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas has named Hussein al-Sheikh as his deputy and likely successor. This move is seen as an attempt to reassure world powers that the Palestinian Authority is committed to reform and stability. Al-Sheikh is a veteran of Fatah, the main faction of the Palestine Liberation Organization, and is widely viewed as a pragmatist with close ties to Israel. However, this development has also raised questions about the future of the Palestinian leadership and the role of the PA in governing the West Bank and Gaza. The PA has been criticized for its lack of progress towards an independent state, and its popularity has been undermined by widespread corruption and increasing Israeli military incursions. In related news, Hamas, which controls Gaza, has been battling Israel for over 18 months, leaving the territory in ruins. The conflict has resulted in significant humanitarian suffering, with thousands of Palestinians killed or displaced. It's essential to approach this story with nuance and balance, recognizing the complexity of the issues at play. We'll continue to follow these developments and provide updates as more information becomes available. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're diving into the latest development in the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Reports are emerging that Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky had a very productive meeting at the Vatican, where they discussed a possible ceasefire. The two leaders were attending the funeral of Pope Francis, and it seems they took the opportunity to engage in some intense conversation. Now, according to sources, the White House is describing the meeting as a significant step forward in Washington's efforts to mediate an end to the fighting between Ukraine and Russia. Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow just yesterday to discuss the U.S. peace proposal. The details of the proposal are still sketchy, but it appears that the U.S. is pushing for a ceasefire deal that would allow Moscow to retain some of the territory it has captured, including Crimea. However, this is where things get complicated. Ukraine and its European allies have made it clear that they will not accept any deal that involves giving up Ukrainian territory. Zelensky himself has stated that the occupied territories belong to the Ukrainian people, and that their position on this issue remains unchanged. It's also worth noting that the Kremlin has yet to confirm whether it will agree to the U.S. peace deal. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin's spokesperson, said today that all Ukrainian troops have been forced out of Russia's Kursk region, which is a key aim for Moscow. However, Ukrainian officials are disputing this claim. As the mediation efforts continue, fighting between Ukraine and Russia shows no signs of letting up. Just yesterday, Russia launched its deadliest attack in months on Ukraine, with 70 missiles and 145 drones targeting Kyiv. The situation remains extremely fragile, and it's unclear whether a ceasefire deal can be reached anytime soon. We'll be keeping a close eye on this developing story and bringing you updates as more information becomes available. In the meantime, we want to hear from you. What do you think about the prospects for a ceasefire in Ukraine? Do you think the U.S. peace proposal is a step in the right direction, or are there too many obstacles in the way? Let us know on social media using the hashtag #ConcreteBlock. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Concrete Block. Welcome back to the Concrete Block. I'm your host, Walter. As we wrap up today's show, we're going to take a closer look at some international news that's been making waves. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has been making headlines with his comments on U.S. President Donald Trump's stated desire to turn Canada into a U.S. state. According to reports from Bloomberg and the Financial Post, Carney has said he takes Trump's comments literally and is preparing for major concessions in trade negotiations. This comes as Canada heads into national elections on Monday, with Carney's Liberal Party holding a narrow lead over the Conservative Party. Now, it's worth noting that Trump has made several complaints about trade between the U.S. and Canada, including issues with banking, dairy, and automotive exports. However, Carney has been clear in his stance, saying that Canada will not be intimidated or bullied into making concessions. As we examine this story, it's essential to consider multiple perspectives. On one hand, Trump's comments can be seen as a negotiating tactic, aiming to extract concessions from Canada. On the other hand, Carney's response suggests that Canada is taking a firm stance in protecting its interests and sovereignty. It's also important to acknowledge the potential implications of this situation on the relationship between the U.S. and Canada. With Canada's economy heavily reliant on trade with the U.S., any significant changes to their agreement could have far-reaching consequences. As we strive to provide balanced coverage, it's crucial to recognize that both sides have valid concerns and interests. We'll continue to monitor this story and provide updates as more information becomes available. In conclusion, the situation between the U.S. and Canada is complex and multifaceted. As we move forward, it's essential to prioritize fairness, transparency, and cooperation in international relations. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay informed.